addition to being a cartoonist, I became a writer of comic books. And as a kid, I never thought I would be a writer. I always just was focused on that idea from my sister that I would be an artist of some sort. But I had this thing fall into my lap, and this has happened over and over in my career, where I've been given these opportunities, and for some reason I don't like run away from them or say, I don't know how to do that. You know, I'm going to do this one thing that I know I can do, and I'm not going to learn to do this other thing that's been sort of handed to me. So when The Simpsons started, and I was doing artwork, mostly for merchandise. So I was doing the artwork that was on all the T-shirts and bedspreads and video game boxes and all that in the early 90s. And this magazine started called Simpsons Illustrated. And it was like a Simpsons fan magazine. It had articles and games, and it's kind of a magazine for kids, but kind of hip kids. And Matt Groening wanted to have a comic book or a comic section in the magazine. So in the first issue, we had one page of comics, and I think it was like 3 comic strips on the page. And so I drew the first Simpsons comic strip, which was a Krusty the Clown strip. And it was like maybe 6 panels, and somebody else wrote it. I don't remember who, but you know, the script was handed to me and I drew it. And that was the first time that I realized that childhood dream of drawing a comic strip. And so that was a huge thrill for me. You know, I was drawing cartoon characters, but I'd never drawn, you know, told a story in pictures, which is what I wanted to do. And so I called the editor after I did that job, and I said, hey, you know, for the second issue, I'd like to be considered because I really had a great time doing that strip. So, you know, if you could consider me to do another one, that would be great. And he said, well, you know, Matt wants to have comics in every issue, and he wants to expand from just one page to several pages. Problem is, we're really scrambling to get the second issue done, and we don't have anything written. So, you know, Matt would really like to have something. So if you're willing, if you write something, then you can draw it. And how would that be? And I said, oh yeah, that'd be fine, sure. And I hung up the phone, and I didn't even know how to type, let alone, you know, how to write a comic strip. I had no idea. So I started thinking, well, how do I come up with a story? And I thought, well, I was a kid. I was a 10-year-old kid once. So what stupid stuff did I do as a kid that I could transform into a Bart Simpson story? So I did that. And I wrote it all out in longhand, and my wife typed it up for me so I didn't look like a jerk. And turned it in, and they thought it was fine. I remember Matt rewrote the punchline, made it funnier. But from that point on, they started giving me, they just assumed I was a writer. And they kept giving me writing work. And then when we started Bongo Comics, I was already doing, for 2 years, I'd been doing the comics in the magazine at that point. So they made me the art director, and I was one of the regular writers. And then after the first year, the editor left. And I was the only person that was even close to knowing how to do what the editor did. So they said, Bill, from now on, you're the editor and the art director. And I didn't know how to edit. Like, I just ignored English growing up in school because I thought, I'm going to be an artist. I don't have to learn all that stuff. And so I had to just sort of teach myself how to do that job. And I probably don't do it the way most people do it. You know, if I was talking to an editor at DC Comics or at Marvel who, you know, came from a different place to get that job, it's probably, they have a very different way of doing it. But, you know, it works for me and it worked for Bongo. So all through my career, I've had those experiences where I had to, you know, just kind of figure out how to do what I was asked to do. And, You also have to have a good poker face because you can't let people know that you have no idea what you're doing. You know, and buy yourself the time to figure it out.